right, are you hearing us now?
Can you hear us?
Hello, world.
Okay, so it's just in the pre.
Yeah, we'll fix that. I'm going to stick with this mic. And I have some fun stuff to show tonight, but not a whole lot because this is a very, as I said earlier, informal discussion about how to make your games more fun and to help your DM be better so that you can be better. All right, with that said, I am joined tonight by the illustrious Rob. You know him as Phantom NJ. Also as a principal provocateur of all good things that happen here on Blue Box. He has supported so many of us in the chat. He's at GaryCon. He is just always on top of things and also part of the road trip being planned for 2023. Thank you, Rob, for joining us as always. You are amazing, my friend.
Thanks, John. It's a pleasure as always.
And then, of course, we have none other than Evelyn. Evelyn, my right hand, my bright smile, the best part of Blue Box. And thank you so much for being with us tonight. And we're going to have a good time. We got about an hour to go. And we're talking about how to encourage your DM. And I've watched some good streams tonight. I actually came from a Table Story stream. You probably know Table Story. I've followed them before, but I watched the most of their stream tonight I've ever watched before, and I was blown away by the role play from that group. So, it's good to support people in the community and to keep engaging with others who are putting out great content, and that's part of being a good DM and a good community. So, with all that said, let's begin. Exhorting. This was a topic which we've tried to get going now for 3-4 weeks. Is that something? And I think the first comment I got was someone read it and said extorting.
I believe that was Thomas, actually.
I think it was Thomas. Yeah. So we're not extorting our DM here. We're exhorting. So Robert, what does it mean to exhort?
To encourage, to give kudos, to give, reasons to, basically, really encourage.
To encourage, yeah.
Be the hype man for your DM.
Hype, yeah, exactly, yes. So to encourage. Now, imploring, yes, imploring, that could be it also. Dingbat, that makes sense. But the idea is to make your DM feel... Look, you can discourage a DM easily, and I'll be frank. Let's take this in reverse. What can discourage your DM? Which is the opposite of exhortation. What can discourage your DM? I've got these are coming to my mind like so fast.
People not paying attention.
Not paying attention.
Notes.
Go one at a time because we want to we'll let the chat. So not paying attention, not taking notes. Robert.
Not showing up.
Not showing up. Yes, canceling and not being there. So that's probably, to me, the number one thing you can do to exhort or encourage your DM is to make the game important. We see all kinds of funny memes about, your players that don't show up and you're discouraged. And a DM puts time. If they're good, which I think most DMs are. They're all trying. They're trying to put time into the game, and you don't even show up for the game. You cancel last minute. That's tough. And I'm not throwing shade at anyone here because we all have life and life is real. So we all work through that. But to not show up is a big discouragement, not an exhortation. What else, Robert?
Basically being disruptive during the game. There's the not paying attention, not being ready for when it's your turn. Not having any.
All right. So no. What? Let's go one at a time. Let's explore. We've got an hour here. We can't jump through those. So start with your first one. Say it again, and let's dive into it.
Being disruptive at the table. It can take several forms, but just anything that brings the game to a stop for really non-game reasons.
All right, so let's dive into that because that's a tough one. Sometimes you have non-game reasons, which are joking and fun, and just the players having a good time around the game table. when does that cross the line between what makes players have fun and what becomes a true distraction to the game? Evelyn?
Basically being disrespectful to the other players and in the DM, not allowing anyone else the time to talk. Basically having I'm the star of this campaign syndrome, and acting like everybody else is secondary to them.
Yeah, I like that. And by the way, we have several mods on. I've got to add Pat Fraley17 as a mod, and we need to ban Pat Draws again tonight. My 7th ban of him, saying the DM is always right when he's obviously wrong. That is clearly a reason to be banned, Pat Draws. But no, don't ban Pat. Pat is my friend. So yeah, that's a good point. What else, Robert?
I mean, just general. Evelyn kind of touched on it, but it's just general respect for, your DM, the fellow players. I've had players who are great when it's their turn, and they are the most disinterested people in the world when focus is not on their character. The second it happens. All right,
that's a good point. So, now. Twitch brings a whole other element to this, right? So it's not just what's happening at the table or happening remotely, but then when you got, 100 people or 150 people watching on Twitch, how could a DM feel either discouraged or encouraged by the actions of his PCs?
As far as encourage engagement, the being ready when it's your turn, understanding, Twitch games tend to be probably a bit more role play heavy, I would say, on average.
Do you think that really?
Yeah.
Wait. And I'm not arguing with you. I want to move on because Evelyn, you've played an in-game with us here. Now, there's still some of them are streamed, some of them haven't been. Do you think that by default the Twitch games become more roleplay heavy than in-game D&D sessions?
I mean, compared to the games that I've played in the past, but it also has to do with the DM because I feel with you, John, every game that I've played with you has been more roleplay heavy than in my first experience, which was more combat based, which was not as enjoyable to me. So I've always liked being at your table because we role play a lot. So, but overall, from what I have seen of, actual play streams, they're going to focus more on the role play because it's more about the storytelling. It's what keeps audiences engaged with the things that they're doing a lot of times.
All right, so let's dive into that for a second. By the way, thank you, Evelyn. And no, she doesn't get paid anymore for that. It was just, I think it was genuine feedback from her. I honestly think I don't think my table changes betwixt Twitch and even when I was playing with my family long before I streamed on Blue Box. I like combat. I think combat should be thrilling and engaging, but the role play is the core of the game to me. And I don't care if I'm playing with newbies, experienced players, kids. I always try to pull them into the role play. So, Robert, to you now, I don't know what your experience, but do you feel like there has to be some sort of distinction betwixt Twitch streaming and on table gameplay where role play somehow becomes less important in person?
I won't say it's less important. I think part of what I get, and this comes from having a set of players that I played with many years just in person, and then playing with them not even on stream, just over Zoom. I think the not being hello, and my dog is decided to.
No, and we got decal things popping up in the chat too, so we're already off track.
Yeah, but what I found is I've got players who I don't know if it's because they're not as comfortable role playing in person. Their body language changes. Being on their own and not in the same room gives them a better sense of freedom. Maybe it's because it's not quite the same as having people stare at you in person as it is, over Zoom chat where sometimes people are not even looking at you at all.
Yeah. All right. So I didn't intend to go in this direction, but it's a good topic for us. So what do you both feel in terms of the difference between streaming and playing in person? Because to me, I feel like as a DM, And you guys can tell me, especially you, Evelyn, because you've seen me in both. I feel like I'm the same as a DM. I feel like I play the game the same way. I still want to role play, but I do think it does make a difference to the players. So talk about that.
Well, since I've played with you in both settings, I can say that, like, for me, at least at the table versus like remote like this, one thing that I miss a lot about the in-person aspect is you can read more the subtleties in body language and a lot of the connection that you have in person that you can't really find as easily through remote streaming. And I think, I mean, like, it just kind of depends on the group you're with too. If you have a really good group of role players and a DM who all mesh really, really well, it works a lot better. So like our Greyhawk group, I feel like we do a really good job together, and I like, it doesn't feel so far different from the table, though there is that connection missing. It doesn't feel as much as like in other like streams that I've either like done one shots in or whatever, where it just feels more disconnected like this because of that lack of subtle cues and body language that you get through and the immediacy as well, because there's not a delay when you're doing it in person. Yeah. So I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I want to come back to Robert before I do. Hello, Art of Mike Disney, Tea Time with Taryn. By the way, I realized there are several of the emotes that are missing from our Twitch channel. I did not realize how many I had not uploaded. We will get all of those pushed out this week. And thank you to Mike and Taryn. Incredible emotes you guys have done for us. Thank you. Also, Manda, your knitted Carlas and Calls, the dinosaurs that you gave us, were a huge hit. I believe you got the payment for all those that were sold. We have some giveaways we'll be doing here in the coming weeks, but we are so thankful. Crochet, that's what I meant. Crochet, not knitted, yes. So is what I know. It's going to be amazing to see how well these will be adopted by the community. And yes, all of you, all of our sponsors, all of our supporters, I'm still glowing from Blue Box Con. We'll talk about that before the game is done, or the session's done tonight. But I want to come back to this idea of things that discourage the DM. And let me throw one up. Yawning. And this is a difference between in person and on Twitch. I've noticed this, and this is maybe a problem for me. Let's talk about this. When I see a player on my table, tired, like 3 hours, their coffee is getting weak, and I don't think twice about it. When I'm on Twitch and I see someone on the screen yawning or distracted, it hits me differently, and that's a problem for me as a DM. I'm not viewing that correctly, right, Rob?
I know, it's funny. I'm trying to remember the last time I saw a player yawn.
Oh, you're just so engaging. They never yawn with you, Rob. Of course, it's like your karaoke.
I mean, it's one of those things where, maybe it's because of the fact that I've had sleep issues at times, so I understand, and it's, I've been there, so maybe I'm just not noticing it, or it just doesn't hit me quite the same way. I can definitely understand that being discouraging, though.
I think that is the difference between Twitch and in-game. When you're just here at the table and just enjoying yourselves, you're not thinking about what people are seeing. You don't care. But when you're on Twitch stream, every yawn, every distracted look away, as a DM or streamer, you can look at that and go, that's not what. So that does hurt the game, I think. Not meaning what they do hurts the game. The DM's perception of that can hurt the game because it feels like they're being too stringent on your reactions in your just normal gaming.
I try hard to make, as far as like making sure like I'm engaging them directly and with certain players, just so that I'm trying to like draw things out of them, and it's the kind of thing where occasionally it's tough sometimes. I mean, they may not be in the right frame of mind. And that's actually something I found more of an issue with, like being on stream or excuse me, go lie down. Streaming or just running a game on Zoom is not being able to pick up on those other cues to tell you that there's something else going on.
So real quick here, a thought on streaming. So when I stream as a DM, you see pretty much what you see now. You can see my whole, upper body, my arms, my hand motions. I notice a lot of streamers, even as I'm seeing like tonight with Evelyn, I see her shoulders and her head. I see and this is what most of you do. I'm not discouraging this at all. I'm just trying to, is this part of the issue that you don't see the hand motions and the body movement and the more sort of full emotive effort that a player makes if you're focused in on just a head and shoulders?
Yeah, I mean, you lose a lot of the effect of like the body motion because I'm short, so like my camera catches what you can see of me because I'm short. But like when you, I tend to be a hand talker a lot, and right. I know that like there's a lot of that I'm doing, but it's off camera because my hands are usually kind of at
below
normal height, and so it's right below my camera line. So, but yeah, I mean, you lose a lot of that body language just from the fact that like only so much can fit into a camera frame.
Right. So things too.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Like the player leaning in to hear, or the player reacting to your movements, how you move. You see it to an extent, but I don't think players feel like they can be that reactive when they're on stream. I mean, during a role play, they may be very emotive, but reactions to what the DM is doing tend to be a little more in the realm of, they'll smile, they might nod, and you can generally tell when they're paying attention, but there's body language that I feel that is definitely missing that you get when you're in person.
All right, so not really a topic for tonight, but how could we make that better? So I've often thought about this. Look at our frames today. If you look on our stream, my frame is intentionally set wide. I zoom my camera out, so it's not so focused just here. You can see my full body language. You can see some of the background behind me. Both of you are doing the more typical Twitch, and I think this is probably the right thing you're doing because I see this on every other stream that does well. But is there some argument to be made that we could pull cameras back and get more of the body language for players? And you can disagree, like completely. I'm just asking the question.
If you have a green screen that supports it, because otherwise things tend to get like you've got your natural background.
Okay.
You'd be staring at a yellow wall behind me, and
okay,
it's not quite the same. I'd rather have a graphic up, than a view of the house at the moment because of my setup. Otherwise, I would definitely prefer to have it back further. I would agree with that.
Well, and even like, where your green screen is placed, because I used one, it depends on the space you have in your where you're at. Because like right now I have a little more space, but this is my green screen. I'm touching it right now. So like I only have so much room, and like I can move back a little bit, but then I'd be hitting my green screen. So.
All right. And clearly, the community has spoken. I've heard this so many times. Glitter Bomb John is a joke. But Vivi just popped in and said, we need more body language, a.k.a. no sweater during DMing. The guns out, the sun's out, the guns out. All right, so that may happen. I used to wear some cutoffs and some tank tops. Maybe I'll do that more in the future. But that's not the point of the stream tonight. Thank you, RenReb, for the sub. All right, back to how to encourage your DM. We already mentioned be present for games. What does it do to you? I mean, I think I've been so blessed. RenReb, thank you. 22 months subbing. I've been very blessed. My games, I very rarely have players cancel last minute. And even when you do, sometimes you can keep the game going if you have enough folks. But talk about that, how important it is to have players that are committed to exhort or encourage your DM?
So, it wouldn't be me if I didn't mention my Friday night group at least once during the stream. I said, I came to a realization a few weeks ago, maybe about a month ago, that I've got the absolute best cure for DM imposter syndrome. And I have a group of players that in a game that they're under absolutely no obligation to show up every week. The game is specifically set up so they can be there when they want, show up when they want, not be there. They don't have to tell me anything. And they all choose to keep showing up. 7 to 10 of them.
And that encourages you, doesn't it?
Oh, it's amazing. And not only that, they tell me that they're not going to be there. They don't have to. I hold absolutely nothing against those who don't, because that's the way it's set up.
Life happens. Yeah.
They tell me they're going to be late. They tell me they apologize when they have to leave early. It doesn't get any better than that. They just keep showing up every single week, and that is an amazing feeling.
All right, so that's a great place to segue from the how to the why. Now that we know how, be there, be present. Well, let's dive into how a little bit more, and then we'll go to why. Other ways you can encourage your DM or exhort them. Let me give you some examples. Fantastic backstories. Go ahead, Evelyn.
That was what I was thinking. That giving them cool stuff to play with in the backstory.
That pumps me up. I get so excited. Yeah, I love that.
Because when you have a really cool story and your players come in with backstories that are clearly showing that they're invested in this, then that's of course going to encourage you, because you have now these really cool things that you can pull into the story to play with and use and tell a cool story together, because they're showing an interest and an investment in the story that you can tell with what they're bringing to the table.
That to me ultimately is what every DM most wants. You're trying to tell a story together, and when you feel like your players are invested, they're building these backstories, they're telling them, they're using accents, they're engaging, then you feel like you're telling a story together, and now everything comes to life. If someone appears disinterested, or they're kind of phoning it in, if you will, that is the easiest way for me as a DM to become discouraged. I love it, and I've been very blessed. My players all seem very, very engaged. Even the one-shots, I've seen players seem engaged. That is critical, and that's not just... So other than backstories, how else do players show their engagement? Evelyn, you've done some
questions about the world, want to learn more about the story that you're telling, try to find the way that their characters are connected to the world, the things that they would know and how that they're tied to it, and just be interested in engaging with the NPCs, seeking out these characters, making connections, because the more you are trying to find, it's to kind of breathe life into everything, that's more encouraging, because you're like, oh, you're interested in this character, let's talk some more, let's RP this out, and being excited about combats, getting really pumped up to take on the big bad guy that's coming up next. Those are all things that are shows an investment to it.
Exactly. No, so well said. So let's explore that just a bit more. So that it can include things like re-engaging with NPCs. For example, when she who shall not be mentioned, I can't even say the name, engaged with Galen in the way she did. That was so encouraging as a DM. We did nothing salacious there, but it was just like a real investment in the community. And then sometimes when you hate the NPCs, when Yaj Talks becomes a byword of joke, when Rayam, or you could either... So
you can see Ashrin flash.
Yeah, I know. Ashrin is forever the byword. But when you can engage with the DM's NPCs, love them, hate them, but know them, remember them, that's super encouraging to a DM. You guys both DM. You've had that experience, right, Robert?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's nothing better than having an NPC. Actually, it's funny because there's three types of NPCs in my campaign. The one that I thought would be a hit that fell flat the NPCs that I never had any intention of doing something that became a whole thing because the players were just thrilled. And then the amazing one where I planned it, they loved it, and it was all good because I already had the plans.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's. I mean, it's a great thing when they show that engagement and because then the player, they become part of the world. They're not just going from place to place doing the thing. They've engaged with the world there. I have a campaign that is on hold that started off. It was doing the Temple of Elemental Evil. They started from Hamlet, and they just finished Moat House before the pandemic hit. But they were very engaged with all things happening at the inn. They were all about the comings and goings and who was there, and the staff and such. So it's a great feeling.
It really is. Evelyn?
Yeah, I mean, like there's so many like NPCs that I feel like have been, love them or hate them. Like it's just so fun to like talk to them. I mean, like I still remember like Osler Gundagut was one of my favorite characters. Broderick Quinn was this orderly guy that kind of had a bookshop in Rune Lords. Love him. Like these
Tom Bombadil, not Stream, but Tom Bombadil. That was one of my best. Oh, what about the this was also, I was thinking about it. I don't even remember his name, but it was in the 4E campaign. It was not streamed, and you had the sort of Nordic. Oh,
I love that guy so much. He was like the traveling guy that we met.
I worked on that accent for like 2 days to make sure I did it decently.
But yeah, I mean, like there's so many like. The thing about like really great NPCs, like I said, love them or hate them, you're going to remember them. And like characters getting really excited to just either interact with them or make fun of them even because,
exactly, yeah.
Even your players making fun of the character, like as the character shows an investment in it because, I mean, we've made all the jokes about Yashtox wearing like so much Axe body spray, but that's because he's memorable. And like the characters found him just so like interesting, maybe a little over the top, but like they were so interested in him that there was that connection made. So it's things like that like shows an investment into the story.
I love it. And I've got several other items to pop into. Hello, all 40-something of you on tonight with Blue Box, as we're just doing a general chat here. We'll raid into Jay here at the end of the stream and just having a good time. I'm still glowing from Blue Box Con and already planning for 2023. We had a fantastic, one of our best GHA streams last night ever. We were well over 100 viewers for most of the night. We averaged well over 70. We're getting closer and closer to partner here as a team, but to me it's more about just the games and having fun, and I'm thankful to the entire community, so appreciative of all your support. Before I jump into an article I have here, Robert, give me one more thing that encourages you as a DM. I know you will, Greg.
So this is something that, I mean, generally speaking, after the game, it's really common, I would say common courtesy to tell your DM, I mean, if they thought it was a good game, say good game, or, that you enjoyed this. But I'm going to go a step further. Tell your DM why. There's something that stuck with me, and this actually happened last year at Blue Box Con. I did the stream game, and afterward, Rory came up to me, and there was this part in the game where they were overlooking a room. They were basically on the second floor of a room where there was some kind of evil ceremony going on, and there were stairs, and the bad guys were coming up the stairs to the party. And he was like, "Can I just jump over the ledge and try to land on them?" And I was like, sure. I told him what was going to, what the possibilities were, gave him the option, and he went for it. I don't remember exactly how long it was, but afterwards he caught up with me at some point that day, and he came up to me and said, "Listen, I really appreciate the fact that you just let me just jump over the ledge." It seemed like a small thing, but it stuck with me because it's the little things. It's the things that they notice.
Yeah.
Maybe things that they're not used to they hadn't considered before, or they never thought a DM would let them do it. Those are the things that you want to take note of, because that shows your players are paying attention. And it feels good, noticing that they're noticing these things, and it also gives you something to work off of. So something's good.
No, Robert, that is actually, I didn't even think about talking about that tonight. I'm so glad you brought that up. So you got two pieces there. One, you as a DM being accommodating to what the player wants, and that is always an important part of being a good DM. But coming back to the topic tonight, the fact that Rory came up to you and said not just thank you, but thank you specifically, and gave you that piece of the game which meant something to him, that encouraged you. You can never encourage, in my mind, a DM enough. And I don't say this to get more encouragement from the community, because I get so much. This is for all of you who play in other games, all of you who are DMing games, and you're supporting players all across the North American continent, and we've got people even that watch us from overseas. That it is a creative act to DM. You're telling a story. You're investing yourself. Many times you're stretching and exposing yourself, not like literally exposing yourself. I didn't mean that, but like creatively exposed.
Vulnerable.
Yes, vulnerable. That's what I meant. Yes, you're showing vulnerability, and so at the end of a game, there is no DM in my mind that can hear enough. I had fun tonight or today. Thank you. And to Robert's point, I really enjoyed this part of the game. That meant a lot to me. Those kinds of comments, yes, Red Hulk and Jerry, John is always right. But that's the feedback that comes from the players in the game specifically, that can say, I had fun tonight. I enjoyed this game, and here's something I really liked. That is so encouraging to a DM. I mean, am I wrong? It's just
No, that's absolutely right.
Oh, no. I mean, listen, I've been DMing for 40 something years, and without feedback, there's still times where, I worry, did they have fun?
Yeah. I've walked away from the table so many times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rob, I'll let you finish. I wanted to exhort you for a moment. I've walked away from the table so many times wondering, man, I hope they enjoyed that. I enjoyed it. It felt like a good game, but I don't really know. And then, especially when you're a DM of a regular campaign, it can become expected. Like, well, yeah, everybody knows you can DM and it's a fun game, but you still will have that sense of wanting that feedback, not from an insecure fashion, but just a validation of the fact that your players enjoyed the game. Especially
if, as a DM, if you're trying something new.
Right.
Like you're going in a different direction that maybe the game hasn't been there before. You need to know. And it's honestly okay if somebody tells you that, listen, it didn't quite work for me. Okay. That's feedback. I'll take that feedback too. But if they enjoyed it, I'd like to know, because I want to know what I'm doing is working for them, because if it's not working for them, I want to correct that for the next session. I don't want three sessions down the line and be like, oh my, suddenly everybody's like, this isn't fun.
Fantastic point. So another way to exhort your DM is honesty. So you can tell them that you liked their game, or you can tell them, I liked this part of your game, but I felt like this was a bit off for me. It didn't work. As a DM, I love that kind of feedback. That tells me how to improve my game. Evelyn?
No, yeah, I mean, any feedback that you can get from your players that's useful, sometimes they can be, and that would be in the discouraging category, someone just being unnecessarily rude. But, anything that they can tell you that they liked, or that maybe they were confused about or stuck on, is things that can help in the future to, improve the game for everyone.
No, that's well said. So when you have that as a DM, how can you take feedback? And sometimes you'll get feedback from a player, or even if a Twitch, an audience, that you don't want to necessarily adopt, but you want them to still feel heard. How do you do that, Rob?
I mean, it depends on the feedback. If it's something that it just isn't going to work, I'll talk to them about. I'll have a further conversation about it, because I want to make sure that first of all, I want to make sure that I'm understanding what they're telling me, because it may be that they don't know how to put it in terms of something that would fit into the game. So have that further conversation. And if, after that conversation, I can have it on, be completely honest. If it's not going to work, or if it's not going to, at least not going to work right now, I want to be honest about the fact that, yeah, I'd like to work that in, but it just doesn't fit. It may not fit that game period, or it may not fit that story. It depends on what the
right
ask is.
Evelyn?
No, yeah, I mean, it's just, when you get some, feedback, depending on how helpful it is. I mean, and it also depends on who's approaching you with it. You no matter what, you can say, I'm taking a note of that. Whether or not you.
Well, yeah, but I felt that was dismissive, which maybe at times should be. So talk about that. Like, do you say, I'm going to make note of that, but you don't really mean you're making note of it, and you're sort of placating, or how do you do that?
Well, I mean, you can take note of it and like kind of reflect on what they're asking of you, and see if that is something that might improve things or not. Like, I mean, when I tell someone I'm going to take note of that, I actually mean I'm going to look into what I'm looking into, because I don't want to ever say, well, hand wave you off,
shine them on, yeah,
really, really, really rude about it, basically. Like, okay, sure, go away. But like, anytime that someone comes to me with an idea, I'm not going to just be like, well, that's a stupid idea. Like, I want to at least like understand why, and see maybe how I need to look at something differently, and see what that might change about what's the way things are going.
Yeah, no, that's really well said. All right, so I want to go to the why here in just a moment, because I think the why is the most important part of this game tonight. What we're talking about is, I think the how we mostly know as players and DMs, but the why I think is critical. But just a couple more points on the how. When you are having a discussion in game, we actually had something last night in our game where Henrietta was the way I was telling the story out on the ground, and she pecked at the summoned wolf that came from Tellidir. And Evelyn, knowing me as one who has killed many, not just PCs, NPCs, but also animals, that poor bear, I'll never forget him. I think she rightly had a fear that I was going to use this to have the wolf swallow up Henrietta, and she wanted to put Henrietta in the back. And so she's like, no, Henrietta's not out. She's in my back. She's safe in my back, right? And as a DM, I stopped her and I said, like, something like, it's okay. We're just telling a story here. And you never want to be a jerk as a DM. If your player would not do something, don't force them to do it. Now, if another PC wants to throw a PC through a portal, that's up to them. But as a DM, you want to honor the wishes of the players. But as a player, let your DM have some license. To me, in that moment, Henrietta pecking at that wolf and chasing him off actually turned into another way you can encourage your DM, which is, and this is not just a throwaway, this is actual real fan art. Fan art encourages a DM. You can't tell me any of you that have DM'd have not loved seeing fan art about your game.
I wouldn't know.
Oh, yes, you would. You've had fan art in our chat.
Of my games?
Yeah. Yeah, FNC.
I've had dozens and dozens of GIFs.
No, you have the GIFs, but haven't you had some fan art in the... I'm going to have to do an audit. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize to you formally, but I think you have.
I'm trying to think if Pat's done anything since he joined the Friday night game, but I mean, most of it is is basically gifts being thrown around like crazy. You can follow the Friday Night Story via gifts. Mind you, it may give you a very, very warped sense of what happened during the game.
Yeah. But it's still fun.
Right.
Hunter said, "You have to save versus confusion, Phantom."
That's right. Man is correct. Siglin has done some.
I've seen it in there.
You say fan art, I'm thinking people, hand draw.
No, just stop, Robert. Just stop. Yeah, you're digging it deeper. Just let it go. All right. So,
no. But no, you're right. You're right. There has definitely been.
It's encouraging, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right, so fan art looks like much more than just the incredible Henrietta we see here on our stream tonight, but it includes other ways of producing fan content. And you, Evelyn, have done some amazing things. I also think of Chandler. I think of Alcott. Thomas, what he's done. Talk about alternative forms of fan art that encourage DM.
Well, I mean, all the various art that I've created myself just for our various campaigns. I have a whole journal from our Middle Earth campaign
that's kind of what I wanted you to talk about. Do you have that there by you by chance, or probably not?
Writing in character, but not only that, like doing things like creating letters, like we did with Alcott and Irda, and the videos that Chandler and Thomas have made of like in character discussions, and just the various things that people do. I mean, Vivi's drawn Winston in the middle of a session once, and she made her marriage certificate with Shorewood. So
oh, I forgot about that. Yes.
All the things that show that the players are excited enough to keep making stuff outside of the game itself too. That's tied back to it.
Exactly. Or when Lee creates a new spell or creates a new item like the Sock of Holding. These things bring so much joy to a DM that runs a game like that. Go ahead.
I've got
Robert.
one for you.
Yeah.
Players creating their own lore.
Yes. Yes.
Because it started off as many things do here on Blue Box for some reason. It started off as something of a joke. It became a ongoing joke, and then it became lore in the Friday night game that half-orcs like to eat snake. It was something that the players they managed to kill a snake that had been hiding under a bed waiting to capture somebody. They killed the snake, and the first thing that they did was ask, was there a fire in the room that they could cook the snake on? And then I thought that was just going to die there, because they spent an hour trying to figure out where they could cook the snake. And then every time that they went to any food vendor, they asked, or any inn or any tavern, anywhere, they asked, is there a snake vendor? Do they sell snake meat? Is snake on the menu? Can we have snake soup? Can we go looking for snake for them to cook? If they, and it just became a thing. And it was driven by the players. I had absolutely nothing to do with that. Other than go along for the ride.
Yeah, no. And sometimes the ride is the best part for DM. Going along for that ride is where the fun comes from. So as you said, when the players latch on to lore or stories, I can't believe how many times Darkweed has come up. It was a spontaneous. I had no intent, no pre-planned. It was a one-time session, and I threw this stuff called Darkweed in the back of a wagon, and the players did some crazy stuff and burned it all and killed horses and staggered away. And Darkweed is still mentioned to this day. Melons, yes, melons. That is another good example. Like, I had no intent when I suggested in Relastra that there was a cellar there by the side of the main processional that had different melons, and I made the mistake of presenting that to Vivi. And of course, you can't give anything like that to Vivi because she will take it and run with it. But that then becomes so. As a DM, sure, John, I didn't. But as a DM, when you put parts of the story out there, pardon me, I swallowed my own spit. I inhaled my own spit, yeah. When you put parts of the story out there and then the players grab onto it and they talk about it, it becomes lore, that is so encouraging as a DM. Now, coming back to Evelyn, you've got the journal. you've also seen what Chandler's doing. Talk about what Chandler's doing in our
yeah. So he has his monster like field book, basically,
Monstrous Librum, I think he calls it.
The Librum Monstera or Monsterum that he's been creating as Markov. But you also have to think about the fact that you literally have multiple players that are cosplaying.
Cosplay encouraged the DM. Yes. Yes. And so like Chandler will take notes, and then he will actually sketch out the monsters and the things that he sees. As Evelyn mentioned, she keeps copious notes. She's my, it's encouraging to me every week when I say what happened last time. And she remembers it better than I do as a DM. And that is encouraging to your DM. All right. So we have covered all kinds of ways on the how. Before I switch to the why, any other comments you guys have, things that encourage you as a DM? I love the comments after the table, showing up on time, doing fan art, remembering what happened, staying invested. What else?
So, from a role play perspective, it seems like a little thing, but there are players who are worried about role playing because they can't do funny, they can't do a consistent voice, they can't do an accent, they can't do cosplay for whatever. You know something? All you need to do for me, talk in the first person as your character, as much as possible. When your character's talking, don't tell me what your character's saying. Speak as your character, and you don't have to do any accents. You just, as long as I know that you're speaking as your character, I'm good. I'm happy. I'm happy as heck, and I will engage you as if you just gave the most wonderful, special voice effect ever. And
so, as opposed to them speaking of their character in third person.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, there are things like my saying that your character is going up to do something is one thing, but when you're having a conversation with an NPC, I don't like when a player suddenly reverts to, well, I'm going to talk to them about this, that, and that. There are times when, as a DM, I will encourage it specifically for speed purposes because it's something we don't want to get too bogged down in, but. By all means, go with the speaking in first person, and I will run through walls to give your character everything that you ask for.
Well, no, that's so well said, Robert. Evelyn, something you want to add, or?
No, I did.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch Jay, when Jay DMs Lord Gazumba, he really doesn't do accents at all. But he does speak in first person with all of his NPCs. You listen to Terry, and Terry and Evelyn are deeply involved in theater. One of their points is that it doesn't always need an accent. Sometimes it's just cadence, pace. It's terminology. You can just slow down, and without putting an accent on, you can sound like someone different. A gravelly voice, and I have no accent at all with this because I'm not trying to. Oh, I can have this accent. I'm not trying to speak with anything at all, but I have to have a higher voice. I think I had an accent on that one. Sorry, I blew that one. But you get the idea, like moving cadence, timing, pace, tone. Any of us can do that without the ability to run an accent, but doing that in first person makes your DM feel like you're kind of putting yourself out there in the same way the DM is putting him or herself out there.
And if they're not comfortable doing that, they're not comfortable like messing with their cadence. It's just something that doesn't come to them naturally. I have a player who, God bless him, I've been playing games with him for 30 years, and it's been a long trip just to get him to speak as his character.
Right.
And that is all I will ever.
That's a great point, Robert. I've never remonstrated someone for not having that sort of approach. I do encourage them to be in first person, and then over time I try to encourage them if they feel they can embody it, or they can do like Mike Disney does and use the southeastern Michigan accent at all times. That is also acceptable in our games. All right, we're getting, so let's quickly go through this. I pulled this up. This is the Nerdist's website. I'm not sure I love everything on here, but there's some interesting stuff. So say yes. One idea keeps the game moving to say yes whenever the Dungeon Master throws a problem at the players. If the players spend time refusing the quest of the shadowy man in the corner of the tavern, that's less time for awesome heroics and witty banter. I would come back to how quickly Evelyn allowed me to put Henrietta back on the ground in front of the wolf last night. When I said that, she immediately understood what I was doing, and it actually resulted not just in great role play, but in fan art. And that is the fun part of DM and player interacting. Now, contrary to that, if I as a DM push her to allow her familiar, essentially Henrietta, to be out there, and then I kill that familiar or do something bad to it, now that is horrible for me as a DM, because she was trying to protect it, and I asked her to give me the trust in the story. She gave me the trust in the story, and I then turned it to something negative. That should never be done by a DM. Does that make sense, Evelyn, Robert?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the biggest things about like the DM player relationship is trust. Like, if you can't trust your DM to, you know, in the game, you don't have anything, and breaking that trust is just gonna you're gonna lose players.
Yeah. Dead on. All right, so number 2 here, write down your powers and abilities clearly. I'm still working with Cade 7 years later. Eventually, we will have clarity on the abilities and powers. But for all of you, knowing like the item that you picked up, the spell power that you have, when you know these things and you don't have to always rely on your DM, it makes your DM feel like you're invested, and that is the main thing as a DM you want to see from a player. So when I see, you know, I can help, and any of us can help as a DM, but when you take this responsibility to know your own stuff, your own spells, your own abilities, your own, that really helps your DM. Fair?
Oh yeah.
All right. Being a good guest, I don't want to get too much, like, yeah, bring snacks. That has actually happened with several of you guys. You've brought snacks and whatnot. I don't want to we got some Critical Role examples here. Now, let's skip all of this and close with the why. Robert, why? I'm a player. I come here to play a game. Why should I care about encouraging or exhorting, not extorting, my DM?
Because you're here to play a game, and, well, unless you plan on finding a different DM, you can easily chase away the one. You know, the DM burnout is real. DM imposter syndrome is real. There are many quick ways to convince a DM to just stop DMing. I've seen enough of it. You know, I've seen enough I've had enough players who had no interest in ever DMing because they've seen what I've gone through at times with certain players. So, yeah, there are more DMs than there ever were, but at the same time, very easy to find that they may not want to deal with you.
All right, so no, that's a really, really good point, Robert, and I don't want this to become a sort of threatening, if you don't exhort me, I won't DM for you anymore, but that's actually a reality that can happen. But let's extend that just to, and Mike, yes, I do. I still have, I think, 2 or 3 more of those Skarn versus Overgord prints, and I will be using those as giveaways. We probably won't tonight for sake of time, but we will on Sunday. Sunday, we're running a special one-shot. Terry will be DMing, Machik ED, and I will be playing in that game with him because we're still missing one of our normal Rune Lords players. We'll be out. Then we'll have 4 straight weeks of Rune Lords after that on Sundays as we get to the conclusion of that campaign, and then we'll be kicking off our aired TLG Troll Lord Games campaign coming later this summer. Yes, I do. Thank you, Mike. But so to your point, Robert, it is one thing you could make someone quit, and that's real. People do quit DMing. I've seen it. They'll try it once or twice, and they get a bad experience, and just like a player, they can quit. And I always feel like we're a steward of the first experience for any role player. Someone comes into our game, I don't want them to walk away and go, I don't ever want to do this again. That sucks. But the same thing for a DM. But there's more than just discouraging them not to DM. So come to an experienced DM. Let's talk about you, Robert. So Evelyn, let's make Robert the subject. Why should someone exhort or encourage Robert as a DM? He's not going to quit. He's not going to stop DMing. He might, but I don't think so. He's done it too long. What good is it to you as a player to exhort your DM?
Well, I mean, you end up having more fun that way. He's going to be more, or your DM is going to be more excited to tell your story with you. They will take your character on an adventure of a lifetime. You get to be heroic, and they will tell you that you're doing really cool stuff. Really fun.
They'll give your character an ascension to the avatar of a god, right? But no, that I think is the main. You might have seen the title or joined us for the first hour or so of the game or the stream tonight and thought this is just a way for DMs to get their players to be nice to them. No. What I'm telling you is that you as a player, when you are in this symbiotic encouragement relationship with your DM will pour more into your game. They'll be thinking about that next session. They'll be pouring more into your character backstory. They'll be pouring over all the lore and the story. And what it does is it creates a better game for you. So this is not about DMs. I fooled you. This is not about DMs at all. This is about players. Players. If you are the type of player that your DM connects with and feels are engaged, that DM will give you a better game and a better experience. Closing thoughts from Evelyn and Robert.
Well, I mean, like the saying goes, you can't pour from an empty cup. So if you want to, get something going and having a good time, you got to fill that up, and that means encouraging your DM, and you'll get it back thricefold. So I find that the more fun that I'm having and the more fun everybody is having, and just being involved and actively participating, even if you're not going to the levels of geekiness that some of us overachiever types do, as long as you're putting in at least as much as your DM is putting in, you're going to have a great time, and that's really what's the most important thing.
Yeah. Well said. Before I go to you, Robert, I'm confused. Pat draws, submit the bank account and credit card info to John's Hotmail. I'm so confused right now. What is that? What am I missing? Was there too much innuendo? What?
Oh, is it the extortion joke? I don't know.
Extortion? No, that's not. No.
Or is this going to the DM will want to provide
connecting with your play? Oh, I don't know.
Oh, what was it?
Schlitz, really?
Oh, yes. Come on, guys. Connecting with your players? Wow. You are, yeah, okay. Robert, can you get us back on track here and conclude the session tonight with, as a DM, if you have players that are truly engaged, you've seen this with FNC. If FNC would have failed, if FNC would have had sort of disengaged, people bumping in and out, not really there, you would have been discouraged as a DM. What you've seen is people jumping in, as you said, consistent every week, popping the gifts in there, supporting with all of their content. You've had other campaigns. What does it mean to you when players are engaged, and what does that make you do as a DM?
Well, I mean, first, Evelyn kind of touched on it, but I mean, the more, and you as well, the more the players give, the more the DM's going to want to give back. But there's another part of that too, and it's something we need to understand. The DM's there to play the game as well. I mean, they've got a different role in the game, but they're there to play the game well. And because they're playing the game, they're there to have fun. If the DM, if you're basically just not giving the DM any reason to believe you're enjoying the game at all, that's not fun for the DM. And if it's not fun, why are they there? This is something we, most of us, we do as it's a labor of love. But if it's just going to just go and fall completely flat, and there's no feedback one way or another, the players don't seem to care, or don't even don't give you any indication that they care, why bother? That's the DM's there to have fun too. So, and having somebody tell you that they're enjoying what you're doing contributes to that fun.
All right, so well said. And ultimately, I think I'm on the stream tonight with two fantastic DMs. I've seen you both DM. You guys are amazing. I feel the primary responsibility for fun at the table is upon the DM. I think the DM has to be the one that has the preparation and engages with the players. But yes, the players can make a huge difference, and I am blessed to have fantastic players. My local games here, my GHA games, as it was I think of a bit of a sort of backhanded compliment from Josh at Blue Box Con when he was being asked what he liked about John, and he said, I like it when John comes on. I'm not talking about myself in third person. I'm saying what Josh said. He said, I like it when John comes on, and before we stream, he's tired. He's had a long day, and he's honest with us and says, I need you guys to really kind of carry the game tonight. I'm just not feeling it, and you guys can do this. Well, that is good, and that is blessed as a DM to have those kinds of players. But ultimately, the responsibility for fun at the table does fall on the DM. And if you are fortunate enough to be at the table of a DM that's good, you should be grateful. If you can encourage or exhort that DM, you might take that good DM and make them great. If you have a great DM and you encourage or exhort them, you stay engaged, you do fan art, you do all the things that we talked about here tonight, you might have an extraordinary DM. So we all do this together as a gaming community, DM and players. This is the glory of D&D. It's not DM against players. It's DM and players telling a story together, and the more that we can support each other, DMs, learn your character. I've done so many shows about how to encourage your players and how to engage your players, but tonight I really want to show all the players out there, and even DMs, it's okay to think about this, that when your PCs are also reciprocating in that, it produces a game which can blossom into something extraordinary, and that's what we all want for our games.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Was that a mic drop? I didn't mean a mic drop there, but I think I did. All right. So it's already 6:50. We're not doing a giveaway tonight, but we do have our fun stream on Sunday. I'll be a player inside of Maciek ED's camp, our one shot. Do we have all the other players yet, Evelyn?
I've had a couple of people contact me, but we are not full yet. So if anybody wants to play, just send me a whisper or a DM on Discord, and I will get you guys added to the list. What I'm going to do is I'm going to randomly choose from those who sign up. So please sign up because it should be fun.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, connecting with your players. Mike Disney, you are the best DM for sure. No doubt about that. And then Steve, I'm sorry to hear that. There are ways to deal with horrible players, but we'll have to do this off stream so I'm not in any sort of legal trouble. And you never win, Pat. No, you're not winning tonight because we're not doing a giveaway. Hello, Sinekin. As we get ready to raid, any final thoughts from either of my august guests?
Just that, yeah, I mean, the DM job, it can be thankless one at times. Try anything you can do to make your DM's life easier is always going to be appreciated, and sometimes it is just showing that you're interested, engaged, and thankful for what the DM is putting forth.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Thank you. And you put forth great games, Robert. You really do. Evelyn, anything else?
I have nothing else to add tonight.
All right. So who's up for us to raid?
That's a good question because I don't think Jay's.
He's not on tonight.
He's streaming tonight.
Nope. All right. So I've been raided by, I think, God. So, everyone, make a recommendation. If I get to kill John's character, Pat draws. Hey, look, I am actually really excited that Terry might kill me on Sunday. I would be utterly fine with that. But I'll play my character to the best of my abilities, and if he does it, it will actually be clearly chicanery that has been manufactured because I will play my character correctly. 5% chance. I don't know 5% chance. You like that one, Amanda?
The Games Tavern is on.
Yes.
Yeah, they're fun. So let's go with them. We've never rated them before. The 5% chance, and if
5% chance?
recommendation, I feel it is a
Yeah, if it comes,
recommendation.
yeah, let's give them a shot.
Yeah,
I do like the Games Tavern.
Recommendation.
So you'll be level. You can be level 2. That's fair, Pat. I like that. Thank you again for all of our mad chatters. Oh, we didn't ask the question. If you're watching tonight and you haven't followed, or if you're a follower who has not subbed, or I know there are some of you hiding in the crevices of our stream who have allowed your subs to expire and have not resubbed, we have one question for you tonight. What are you doing? Give us a follow. Give us a sub. We're going to raid a new group here, 5% chance. They are streaming some D&D. Looks like it's fun, too, as well. So pop in there and say hello to them. Give us a follow or sub if you have not yet. And start the raid.
Now?
And hold on. Boom,
Psycho.
boom, boom.
Yes.
Boom, 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 boom.
Raid,
And the raid has happened.
Raid.